Rain hammered the streets of Portland, blurring headlights and turning the city into a watercolor of motion. Inside the dim corner cafe, a man sat alone at a small table, staring at his reflection in the window. His phone buzzed, then fell silent. Elias Mercer checked his watch again. 7:14 p.m. She was late. He drummed his fingers on the table, trying to look casual but feeling ridiculous. Blind dates weren't his thing, and tonight was only happening because his friend insisted. "You need to meet someone real," she'd said. "Someone who doesn't care about your money." Elias exhaled slowly, watching a raindrop race down the glass. "Someone real," he muttered. "Right." The door creaked open, letting in a burst of cold wind and rain. A woman stumbled in, soaked to the bone, clutching a broken umbrella. Her hair was wet, her coat old, her boots muddy. She scanned the room, then smiled when she saw him. "Elias?" she asked. He stood, momentarily speechless. Yeah, that's me. I'm Clara." She shook off some rain and laughed softly. "Sorry, my umbrella didn't survive the walk." "It's fine," he said, though he wasn't sure what to make of her. She looked ordinary. No designer anything. No pretense. Just a plain coat, a worn backpack, and eyes that seemed too open for this world. They Saturday. The waitress brought menus, and for a moment, silence stretched between them. Thick, uncomfortable. Clara broke it first. "I brought you something." Elias blinked. "You brought me something." She reached into her backpack, pulling out a small cloth bundle tied with a faded ribbon. She set it gently on the table. "Open it." Inside was a small hand-carved bird, smooth and detailed, made from dark oak. On one wing was an inscription, "To be seen is to belong." Elias turned it over in his hands, genuinely stunned. "You made this?" "Yeah," she said with a shrug. "It's what I do." He wanted to ask why. Why bring a gift to a stranger? But before he could, she smiled again and said, "I carve little things like that. It helps me stay grounded. Most people just think I'm weird." He chuckled softly. "Weird's not so bad." "No," she said, eyes glinting. "It's honest." Something shifted. Her words disarmed him. There was no flirtation, no performance, just quiet sincerity. "So," he said, trying to find footing, "you're a woodworker?" "Yeah. I fix old furniture, carve bookmarks and keychains. Small stuff." "Is it your business?" "Sort of. I sell some on Etsy, give some away." He frowned. "Give them away?" Clara nodded. "Yeah. Sometimes people just need a little kindness they can hold." Elias studied her face. She wasn't trying to impress him. She wasn't even nervous. That was new. She looked up suddenly. "You Googled me, didn't you?" He froze. "What?" Her smile widened. "You did. You probably know where I went to school, my last job, maybe even my old Instagram account." He laughed awkwardly. "Maybe a quick search." "Well," she said, leaning forward, "I didn't Google you." He blinked. "You didn't?" "Nope. I like meeting people without knowing their resume." Elias had never met anyone like her. Every woman he'd dated before knew his title, his company, his income. But Clara, she looked at him like none of that mattered. The waitress arrived with coffee. Clara cupped her mug between both hands, eyes drifting toward the window. "I used to hate nights like this," she said. Rain always meant another move. Elias tilted his head. "Move?" "Foster homes," she replied simply. "You get used to packing fast." The words hit him quietly, like a note struck in the wrong key. "Sorry," she said quickly. "That's probably too much for a first date." "No," he said. "It's not." She smiled faintly. "You don't have to pretend you're okay with it." "I'm not pretending." That surprised her. She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face. Then she nodded once, as if accepting something invisible. "When I was 14, she said, I met a girl living on the street. I gave her all my savings, like $30. She left a note in my bag later. It said, "You saw me when no one else did." I still keep it. Elias leaned back, his chest tightening. That's powerful. It's the only time I remember feeling like I mattered, Clara said softly. So now, I try to give that back. She took a sip of her coffee. Elias noticed her hands were rough, scarred in places. The kind of hands that worked hard, that built things. He wanted to ask more, but she dropped her bag suddenly and knelt to pick it up. Papers spilled out, receipts, pencils, a small notebook. Elias bent to help and froze when he saw what was written on one open page. When you have little to give what can't be taken. Trust, time, kindness. She quickly snatched it back, embarrassed. Sorry, it's just something I remind myself. It's beautiful, he said quietly. She hesitated, then smiled. You really think so? Yeah, he said, still holding the wooden bird. It's real. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. For the first time that night, Elias felt like the noise in his head had quieted. They talked more, about small things, about how she fixed a chair for a neighbor, how she taught herself to carve by watching videos, how she sometimes forgot to eat when she was working on something she loved. And for once, Elias didn't talk about business. He didn't talk about mergers or clients or quarterly reports. He just listened. When the check came, Clara reached for her wallet. Let me at least pay for the coffee. He laughed. Absolutely not. She grinned. You're not used to people offering, are you? Not really. She slipped her coat back on and glanced toward the window. Looks like the rain's not letting up. I can give you a ride, he offered. She shook her head. Thanks, but I like walking. Rain makes the city honest. He watched her step outside, disappearing into the downpour. The wooden bird sat in his palm, warm from her touch. He didn't know why, but something inside him whispered that this wasn't the last time he'd see her. And for the first time in years, Elias Mercer didn't want to be anywhere else but in that moment. Watching a woman who made the world a little more human walk away into the rain. Elias didn't sleep that night. The rain kept tapping against the window like an unfinished thought. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the wooden bird on the nightstand. He reached over, turned it in his hand. The carving felt alive. He could trace the grooves where her knife had moved. He caught himself smiling. Ridiculous. The next morning, his assistant reminded him about a 9 o'clock board call. Numbers, reports, deadlines. He went through the motions, his voice steady but his mind miles away. When the meeting ended, he stayed seated, staring at the corner of his desk. The bird sat there, oddly out of place among sleek monitors and glass. He opened his laptop and typed Clara Dean Woodwork Portland. The search returned an empty Etsy store with a note, on break. No address, no contact, just a profile photo of her laughing beside a table of carvings. He exhaled and shut the laptop. Maybe she wanted to stay unseen. By evening he couldn't resist. He took the long way home, past the neighborhood cafes and warehouses until he reached the east side. Rain had returned, light and persistent. He saw a glow coming from an old garage with the door half open. Inside, Clara was sanding a piece of oak. Music played low, an old song he couldn't name. He knocked gently. She looked up, surprised. Elias. I was in the area, he lied. She grinned. No one's ever in this area unless they're lost. He laughed. Then I'm very lost. Come in, she said, wiping her hands. Don't mind the mess. The workshop smelled of sawdust and rain. Every surface held half-finished things. Hearts, birds, small boxes. She picked up a block of wood and started carving without looking at him. You really do this all day? He asked. When I can. It keeps me steady. She gestured to the shelf. Each piece is for someone specific. I give them away when the time feels right. He walked along the shelf, reading the small inscriptions. You matter. Keep going. You are remembered. You carve words for strangers. "They're not strangers once I see them," she said quietly. He turned. "You make that sound easy." "It isn't. But it's worth it." She set down the knife. "Why are you here, Elias?" He hesitated. "Honestly, I wanted to see you again." That stopped her. "You don't seem like the impulsive type." "I'm not." He smiled faintly. "That's the problem." Clara studied him for a moment, then poured tea into mismatched cups. "Then sit. Be impulsive." They talked. About his work, the pressure, the noise. About her childhood, the silence, the way she'd learned to listen for small good things. Her honesty stripped away his usual armor. She didn't flinch at awkward pauses. She filled them with presence. When thunder rolled outside, the lights flickered. She laughed. "The power loves to test me." "Do you ever get tired of fixing things?" he asked. "Only when I forget why I started." He nodded slowly. "Why did you?" "Because someone once fixed me." Her tone softened. "A woman who ran the group home I stayed in. She told me people aren't broken, just unfinished." Clara smiled. "Guess I've been carving ever since." They fell quiet. Rain hissed against the door. Elias finally said, "You make the world feel simple." "It isn't simple," she said, "but it can be kind." When he left that night, she handed him another carving, a small key. "What's this for?" She shrugged. "You'll know when to use it." He turned the key in his fingers as he drove away, feeling lighter and heavier all at once. Days passed. He found himself checking his phone between meetings, waiting for a reason to go back. When he finally did, she wasn't at the shop. A note on the door read, "At the community repair studio. Come by if you like noise and chaos." He went. The studio was a converted warehouse filled with kids, broken bikes, and the smell of glue. Clara knelt beside a boy struggling to sand a block of wood. "Don't fight the grain," she told him. "Move with it. Like dancing." The boy giggled, tried again, smoother this time. Elias stood by the doorway, unseen. She looked alive here, laughing, covered in sawdust, utterly free. When she finally noticed him, she waved him over. "Didn't expect you," she said. "Grab an apron." He hesitated. "I don't know the first thing about." "Then you'll learn." She handed him a piece of sandpaper. Within minutes he was surrounded by chatter and laughter. A girl asked, "Are you rich?" The room went quiet. Elias smiled awkwardly. "I used to be." Clara watched, curious. The girl frowned. "Do rich people care about us?" He thought for a moment. Before he could answer, Clara spoke softly behind him. "Some do. They just forget how to show it." He looked at her. That sentence landed somewhere deep. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, that sounds right." When class ended, the kids scattered. Elias helped stack tools. "You really believe that?" he asked. "That some people forget?" "Sure. But remembering is easy. You just start again." She tossed him a rag. "You don't smile enough, Elias." He laughed. "You don't know me well enough to say that." "Exactly," she said, grinning. "And I can still tell." That night, he walked her home. Rain began again, softer this time. They passed an elderly man sitting under a storefront awning, drenched, eyes distant. Clara stopped. "Wait here," she whispered. She pulled a small carving from her pocket, a heart, and placed it in the man's trembling hand. "You're not forgotten," she said. The man's eyes filled. He whispered, "Thank you." Elias couldn't move. He watched her kneel there, unafraid of the rain, unafraid of anything. When she returned, he said quietly, "You do that often?" "When it feels right." He wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in his throat. Back at her door, she turned to him. "You look like someone who's been reminded of something important." "Maybe I have." She smiled. "Then don't forget it." He stood there after she went inside, soaked and breathless. The wooden key in his pocket felt heavier now, like a promise. He didn't know it yet, but everything in his world was about to come undone. The next morning, Elias arrived at work early, still damp from the night's rain. The office was quiet, city lights bleeding through glass walls. He sat behind his desk, staring at the company logo engraved on polished metal, Carrington Holdings. His empire, his cage. His assistant entered, nervous. "You're trending, sir." Elias frowned. "What?" She turned the tablet toward him. A video was playing, a shaky clip from the community workshop. Kids laughing, Clara teaching, Elias beside her, covered in sawdust. The caption read, "Billionaire CEO volunteers at local repair studio." The comments below were brutal. PR stunt. Fake kindness. His just-saving face. He scrolled until his hand trembled. Then the phone rang, the board chairman. "Elias, we've got a problem. Investors are nervous. This, whatever it is, looks bad." "It's not bad," Elias said evenly. "It's honest. Honest doesn't pay dividends. We'll discuss this in the afternoon meeting." The line went dead. Elias sat still for a long time, the hum of fluorescent lights pressing into his head. Then he shut the laptop, took off his tie, and walked out. Outside, the rain had stopped but the streets glistened. He drove without knowing where he was going until he reached the warehouse. Clara was there, sorting boxes. "You look like you've been through a storm," she said. "Maybe I have." He told her everything, the backlash, the call, the board's anger. She listened quietly, hands still moving. When he finished, she said simply, "So what will you do?" "I don't know." He rubbed his face. "I've built my life on people believing I'm in control. And now, I don't even know who I am without that." Clara stepped closer. "Maybe that's the best place to start." He looked up, surprised. "Losing everything. Finding something real," she said softly. A silence fell between them, thick but not uncomfortable. The kind of silence that asks you to breathe again. Then her phone buzzed, a message from the center coordinator. "We lost half our funding," she murmured. "They said our lease is in danger." Elias straightened. "How much?" She hesitated. "Too much. It's okay. We'll manage." "No, you won't," he said firmly. "Let me help." "Elias." "No strings. Just, let me do something that matters." Clara studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "If you're serious, come tomorrow. We'll start sorting what can be saved." He smiled faintly. "I'll be here." That night, he received an email. Suspension pending investigation. No signature, just corporate language. The kind that erased people in seconds. He stared at the screen, then closed the laptop and poured a drink he didn't want. The next morning, he showed up at the warehouse anyway. Clara looked at him, eyebrows raised. "Didn't expect you so soon." "I don't have anywhere else to be," he said. She grinned. "Then grab a broom, boss." Hours passed as they cleaned, fixed, patched, and laughed. Elias worked until his shirt clung with sweat. The kids trickled in later, curious that their CEO friend hadn't disappeared. By evening, the place looked different, rough, but alive again. A small girl tugged Elias's sleeve. "Are you going to stay?" He crouched down. "Do you want me to?" She nodded, smiling shyly. "You don't talk like the people on TV." He laughed. "That's good. I don't want to anymore." When the girl ran off, Clara said quietly, "You're different." "Am I?" "You're lighter. Like you stopped fighting yourself." He exhaled. "Maybe I finally broke enough to bend." She touched his shoulder gently. Breaking isn't always the end. That night, they sat outside the warehouse, watching streetlights shimmer on puddles. Elias turned to her. "You know, I used to think success was control. Owning everything, proving I could. Now, I think it's just showing up for someone." Clara smiled. "Welcome to the human race." He chuckled. "I'm late to the party." "Doesn't matter," she said. "You're here now. He wanted to kiss her. The thought terrified him, not because of rejection, but because it felt safe. And that was new. Instead, he said softly, "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me." She looked away, smiling. "Took you long enough to notice." A week later, everything changed. News broke that Carrington Holdings was removing Elias as CEO. Loss of investor confidence, the article read. His face was everywhere, every channel, every feed. By the afternoon, journalists camped outside his apartment. He turned off his phone, packed a single bag, and left. When he arrived at the warehouse, Clara was waiting. She saw his empty eyes and opened her arms. No words, just presence. He sank into her embrace like someone finally letting go. Hours later, when the silence settled, he whispered, "It's all gone." She smiled gently. "Maybe now you can build something that lasts." He looked at her, a tear catching the corner of his eye. "How are you always so calm?" "I've lost before," she said softly. "I learned that the only thing that can't be taken from you is what you give away." He nodded slowly. "Then I guess I've got some giving to do." Over the next days, he stayed with her. They fixed the studio, painted walls, replaced lights. They brainstormed ways to fund programs, small repairs for locals, workshops, shared meals. He started to see people again. Not clients, not assets, people. They called it the Shape of Kindness Project. When a volunteer asked what it meant, Clara said, "It means kindness can take shape in anything. A carved bird, a shared meal, a moment like this." Elias smiled, looking at her. "Especially a moment like this." Within weeks, word spread. Someone filmed a short clip of them. Clara teaching a child to carve while Elias helped repair an old table. The caption read, "The fallen CEO building hope with his own hands." It went viral. This time, the comments were different. Real compassion exists. He found what money couldn't buy. Maybe success is kindness. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. He just kept showing up. Months passed. Seasons softened. The warehouse was no longer a place of broken things. It was alive, humming with laughter, music, and the smell of coffee. Kids ran in and out carrying scraps of wood like treasures. Volunteers painted the walls with bright colors. The words "The Shape of Kindness Project" stretched across the front in bold letters. Elias stood by the entrance one morning, watching a group of teenagers fix an old bookshelf. Clara walked up beside him, her hands dusty, hair pulled back, eyes full of quiet fire. "You know," she said, "you've gotten pretty good at this." He smiled. "Don't tell anyone. I've got a reputation for being terrible with tools." She laughed. "You're better with people now. That's harder." He nodded, glancing around. "I used to think this kind of life was small. Now it feels like the only thing big enough to matter." Clara looked at him, then toward the corner where a small girl sat alone, sketching. "That's Mia," she whispered. "She's been coming here for weeks. Group home kid. Doesn't talk much." Elias walked over slowly, crouching beside the girl. "Hey, Mia, what are you drawing?" She hesitated, then turned the paper. A wooden bird, wings wide. He smiled. "You're an artist." She shook her head. "I just copy what I see." He handed her a small carving knife. "Then make it real." Her eyes lit up. For the first time, she smiled. Later, Clara found Elias watching Mia carve. "You've got a way with her," she said. He shrugged. "Maybe I just see the part of me that used to be lost." Clara reached for his hand, fingers brushing gently. "Then don't let her get lost." He squeezed back, voice low. "I won't." Weeks turned into months. The project grew beyond anything they imagined. Free workshops, donation drives, a local cafe built next door by volunteers. When Elias finally proposed, it wasn't in a fancy restaurant. It was right there in the workshop, under string lights, surrounded by laughter and wood dust. He knelt beside a newly carved table. "Clara Dean, will you build a life with me?" She laughed through tears. You already started without asking. They married in spring, a small ceremony at the community garden. The kids made decorations. Mia handed them the rings. When Elias looked at Clara, everything else fell away. Years later, a soft rain fell outside a cozy bookstore on a quiet street corner. The sign above the door read, "Kindred Pages, Books and Woodcrafts." Inside, shelves overflowed with stories and handcrafted trinkets. Warm light filled the room, and laughter drifted from the back. Clara stood by the counter, organizing a new display. Elias sat near the window with a cup of tea, watching Mia, now older, read aloud to a group of children. She had grown into herself, bright and fearless, her voice steady and full of joy. Clara walked over, slipping an arm around his shoulder. "You still keep that bird on your desk," she teased. He smiled. "It started everything. I can't let it go." On the far wall, a wooden plaque read, "From the broken to the brave." Beneath it hung carvings made by people who had once come seeking help, each one bearing words of hope. "You matter. You are seen. You are enough." Clara reached into a drawer and pulled out something wrapped in an old handkerchief, the same one she had used that rainy night years ago. She unfolded it carefully. Inside lay the original wooden bird. Elias stared, stunned. "You kept it?" She nodded. "It reminded me that kindness can change everything, even when you don't mean it to." He took her hand. "You gave me that on the night we met. I didn't understand then. I do now." She smiled softly. "What does it mean to you?" He looked around the bookstore, the laughter, the shelves, the rain outside. "It means home, and home isn't a place." She leaned in, finishing the sentence with him. "It's someone." They both laughed quietly, the kind of laughter that feels like breathing. Mia ran over, holding a new carving, a tiny wooden heart with the words "Thank you for seeing me" etched in the center. "I made this for you," she said. Elias's eyes filled. He whispered, "It's perfect." Clara hugged Mia close. "You're part of our story now." Mia smiled. "You're part of mine too." Outside, the rain fell softly against the window. Inside, the room was full, not just of people, but of presence, warmth, and the sound of belonging. Elias turned toward the camera, toward us. His voice was quiet, but steady. "If you've made it this far, maybe this story found you for a reason. Maybe kindness is the reminder you didn't know you needed. If it touched you even a little, take a moment, share it forward. You never know who needs to hear that they still matter." He smiles softly. And hey, if you believe in stories that heal, if you want more moments like this, hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a comment below telling us what kindness means to you. And share this video with someone who could use a little light today. Clara's voice joins his gently from off-screen. Because every time you share kindness, you help it take shape in the world. The camera pulls back slowly, the bookstore glowing, laughter echoing, rain still falling outside. The wooden bird hangs in the window, turning slightly in the breeze. The screen fades to black, with a single line etched in soft light. The shape of kindness, a story about finding home in a stranger. Then, Elias's voice one last time, warm, genuine, grateful. "Thank you for watching. Stay kind, stay human, and I'll see you in the next story." The music lingers. The silence that follows is full.